Hello, thank you for joining. My name is Seth Remetch. I'm an ERP consultant with ROI Healthcare Solutions. Today, we're just going to cover getting started with contract management. And that's really going to be different in version 10, which it's available, and then also FSM, or as some call it, version 11 or Cloud Suite. So FSM stands for Financials Supply Management. And so that's kind of how Infor covers it, as saying, instead of just saying Cloud Suite anymore, which entails a lot of different modules. They've really listed it and minimized it to FSM, which is Financial Supply Management. So as we go through here, I'll refer it to as FSM. As some groups go through, they consider it, it's easy to go saying I was on version 10, now I'm to version 11 and the differences. So just for vocabulary sake and also knowledge transfer, when FSM is used, that's referring to what you'd say is Cloud Suite or version 11. So what we're going to cover today is some major finer points of contract management module and a few of the differences that are for version 10 and FSM. So obviously FSM is the more up-to-date version, more kind of modern and versatile, but you can still take advantages of contract management module in version 10 as well. And so there are still some benefits to that. And so today we're going to go over just to give you a good understanding of the benefits and advantages of contract management module and what you can do just with a simple implementation for version 10. And then obviously FSM has a larger one along with it with financials attached. So with all that being said, we'll get started. And let's start off with kind of with what is contract management? And contract management, based through Infor, is used to create and manage supplier contracts that are based on items or services purchased over the life of the contract. Contract management provides a repository for contracts and allows for the management of those contracts as well. And some of you will be currently on version 10, and some of you maybe just on version 11 or getting ready to go to version 11 or would like to see the benefits to that. So going forward, we're going to start off with version 10 and the benefits and advantages to that. And these are just a few that we have that we'll cover. And the first is just that contract management itself, it provides a repository for the contracts, not just the information itself for pricing, items, defaulting, or even for services, but it allows for that full management of those contracts. It allows for you to put any contacts in that you may have, any pricing differences, multiple price differences. So if you have different tiers from different locations that you want to use. And then it also allows you to put all of your documentation into that location as well. So it's really a complete repository, a one-stop shop, if you will. Version 10, a biggest difference between version 10 and FSM is that with version 10, it's a separate module. And so when you do release and activate to update contracts or activate contracts, that actually will interface into the S3 side of Lawson. So as you build it, it's not automatically connected to that S3 side of Lawson. Like FSM, with it being Cloud Suite, everything is connected from the get-go. So that's one of the things that's really a benefit and advantage in version 10 and being able to take care of that is allowing yourself an opportunity to utilize it as a repository. And you can also use it for items you don't purchase as well. In some cases, you may just want a location where it's going to track your dates And for those dates, you want it to remind you that it's going to expire. It needs to look at, a master service agreement, as a matter of fact. And then you can also attach, you can have a master service agreement and attach a child contract to it or a location. So you have those abilities to really fine tune and get all of your locations attached to the same central repository as well. The other thing it does is, and this is one of one of the largest, is it allows the ability to not only add item master items, but also special items. And so what that allows you to is in PO25, if you build something in PO25, you have to have that item master item built as well. And so what this allows you to do is this allows you to not only add item master items to a contract and have that pricing default, but it allows you to add special items to a contract as well. So when a requester is searching for an item and they know that it's not in Lawson, or they're just looking to see if it is in Lawson, they can still search by those special items as well. And if those are on a contract for their location, they will be able to have that pricing default as well. So that really enhances your ability to kind of track all of those specials that people may just type in or write in for that order, and actually get that information tracked on the contract. And then you can really track all that information for sales and usage and say, you know what, maybe I need to have that item master item created. So utilizing those special items is one of the largest things, because in version 10, if you want to have that agreement, it has to have that item master item built. Now, the specials in version 10 do not interface into the clinical system, but in FSM they will. So that's something where, as long as it's not going to be interfaced in the clinical, you can have those special items on contracts. And instead of just adding the 30 items off a contract that you use, you can add all the items available on that contract, which is going to allow you a better tracking, and then also the ability to make sure that those requesters are utilizing contracted items as opposed to going off contract. So that's some more control that you can utilize contract management for. The special items can be added to the contract lines and then interfaced, and then they have default pricing as well. So it gives you that purchasing tracking, and it also gives you one less thing you have to hassle with trying to make sure the pricing's right, anything like that, because it's coming off that contract. Another big thing that you can utilize it for is review dates and set up email notifications for those dates. It really helps, especially with contracts where you wish it could be a 1 or 2 day turnaround for a new contract, but unfortunately, even with GPO contracts, sometimes those are behind. So, time is of the essence, and the faster you can get on the vendors for creating contracts or getting ones updated is better. So this really allows you to utilize review dates to get those automated email notifications out to your contract managers or anybody who's going to be negotiating contracts, or even just to reach out for an update. Also, if you utilize it for service agreements, if you have a service agreement that's an open-ended service agreement where you just have, say, allotted $2,000 available for that for just maintenance or time and materials, you can utilize those review dates to remind you to kind of review that to see if you still need to have that time and materials open, or any of those other services still available. So that way, when it comes time to needing that PO number for service or anything from a vendor, it's already there. The dates aren't expired, and then also that helps with keeping track that the amounts on the agreements are there. especially with the services, allowing that your AP department can run those invoices against those agreements as well for matching. And then that really speeds up the process there. And then last but not least, we have, the ability to track rebates. That's something that can be very confusing, especially with some systems that don't track them very much. This allows you to place those rebates on the contract itself so that you can track those and really keep up to date. If you're expecting to have a payment and that payment doesn't show up, then you know to be reaching out. So that's something that rebates is sometimes overlooked with some agreements, and they're very tricky in some cases. But for the most part, this really does take a somewhat simplified approach to being able to implement those rebates and then track them and make sure that as a system and facility, you're getting back what you're supposed to based on that contract. So as you sign into contract, in version 10, as you sign into contract management, you will receive this load screen. And what this screen is this is really tabs based on the statuses of your contracts to help you really fine tune where you want to go for fastest response time as far as finding a contract. What are you trying to work on for that day? If you're supposed to be resolving contracts that are on hold, you're just reviewing active contracts that are expired and you need those, a list of those to be sent out. So it loads with in process. And so what it means by in process is it is anything with a status, and here's your status column to your right, anything with a status other than active. Okay. So I should say active or closed. So anything that's ready to activate, they've released that contract and it's ready to be clicked on to activate it, which is going to force it to interface into version 10 over into the S3 side. Amendment is a contract that you've already released and activates. The information's already been interfaced at one time, but somebody's put it into amendment so that they can update something. And then once they update that information, they can release and activate it again, requiring the interface and updating the S3 side. So if you have a price that you need to update, you change the price on that line, you release and activate it, and that price is going to that change is going to be updated over into, say, PO28 and PO25. So, and then draft is initially, if you were to click create here, the draft itself is just the contract header itself. So that is initially when you create your contract. At draft, you can do anything to it. You can add your lines, your comments, anything like that before and then it can be deleted if you say you don't want it. You end up building it and don't want it. So draft is that essential first status that your contract will have once you save the header. And then it also breaks it down. You have active that are not expired. So all the contracts that are in an active state, but they're not expired, you'll have here. You can click on that. It'll have the list of those. Your active contracts that are expired, those are ones that obviously need to be reviewed. And then obviously you have your on holds and your closed. Any alerts, anything that's going to need something to look at if there's a contract line error. So this is really essentially how you're going to look at it, and it's simplified in a list so that you can get to it quickly, search it quickly, and then also it has a search here. So if you have your working contract ID, in a lot of cases, if you have a GPO number, those will be used for a working contract ID. So if you need to do maintenance on that contract or verify a price or just documentation, you can search that easy. So this is really your first initial screen as far as what you would look at coming into to version 10 contract management module. And so I was saying, if you click create, you have that contract header. And that's where this is once you click create, it brings up a contract header. And you'd have your contract group, which would be the same as your main hospital and purchasing group. And then your suppliers. Now your supplier you'll create based on each vendor that you're going to use. So if you say it's we'll use example of Medline. Medline, you'd build a supplier. The supplier actually attaches to the vendor number on the S3 side. And so that's how it gets to default to the correct vendor based on that contract for those pricings. Then you have your contract header. So these are all the things that initially you will build and fill in. And some of these will stay empty as you build them. But it is your descriptions. You'll create contract types and contract classifications based on how you're tracking or what kind of contracts you want to split them up. And then effective dates, and then your primary contact, and then what kind of contract it is. And then if it is a service agreement and you want to limit it to the amount of certain funds, you can also have those listed on here as well. And then you can also list if it has a parent contract. So going through this, I know it's very quick, but this is your first screen that you would have as you're creating a contract. This is the contract header. And as you create these, you'd be able to add your participants. So who's going to be the members on the contract? You know, if it's company 100 and company 120, then those are what you're going to list. And then you can put, what the pricing tiers are, what lines you'd actually have, any rebates if you have. And in some cases, you're not going to have rebates. A lot of contracts you won't. But that just stays there. If you're not going to do rebates and everything, you can, have that hidden. Your related documents. Now, here's where it's kind of confusing in version 10. Version 10 has a related documents. Now, this related documents is going to be if you have a purchase order number that's generated for, say, a service agreement. And if you change your working contract ID to anything, that's where that information will be here. Where your documents will actually be saved is underneath the comments tab. You can list a comment, and then you'll actually save your documents under comments. So that's a little something different that as they created this years ago, that because this information is attached through so much with interfacing and everything, it wasn't, and they knew that FSM was coming along, it wasn't beneficial for Infor to spend the time to add an attachment tab here just for contract attachments or price files. So they made it available under your comments tabs. So you can have all your contacts, your comments, and then any email notifications that you want to have, all based on here. Once you've actually added all these tabs of what you want to utilize, your lines are added, your companies that you want to use, or your participants. Once you release and activate this contract, it actually interfaces over into the S3 side of Lawson. And so you get a PO25 interface that still has a vendor agreement reference that you've created. It's going to tell you it came from contract management. And then if it has any comments that agreement has on it. And then it also has your lines, your pricing, and your dates and your names. So it's just like you built it in PO25, but you actually built it in contract management. And so what that allows you to do is if you clicked on, say, your lines, you actually have all of your vendor item and your item numbers. Now, this will, in today's world, PO25, if you build it in there, you only get item numbers. Now, if you do it with contract management, it can interface over those specials that I was talking about. So you not only get your specials, you also get your Lawson items as well. And so that pricing comes over, and it allows you to look at that pricing in PO25. So everything that you have on that agreement will be in PO25 if you add it to a line. It interfaces. And then as you go over to PO28, it interfaces that information over there based on the item. So this can be a Lawson number. This could also be a special. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for a special item, you can click that into here, hit your inquiry, and it'll pull up that information and it'll pull up that agreement. Now, in this case, the agreement's expired, but that's based on the agreement that I could utilize. And what it does is it doesn't show you what company is here, right? Because this has multiple companies on it. So the neatest thing about the agreements and contract management module is that you can have multiple price points for the same item in different companies. So what we have essentially done here is this item number from this vendor, it has multiple price points. You can't see those here, but once you click on the details button, you actually will have a list of your companies, their costs, what tier they're on, and if they're on hold, okay, or if they're not. So this allows you to take advantage of one agreement instead of having to build out one agreement per location if the price is different. So that's something that really minimizes the management of agreements, and people like to take advantage of, because this not only works, this tiered pricing not only works for item master items, it also works for specials. And I know I've said that many times, but there's a lot of systems out there that they really have a hard time keeping track of specials. And so this really allows you to really hone in on specials as well and take advantage of it so that you have those prices available. So version 11, as I said, Cloud Suite, FSM, version 11. Get used to that FSM as of right now, unless Infor changes it. But FSM, when people refer to that, that's essentially what they're working on. And a lot of those benefits come through, and you know, we've put a handful of them on here. There are numerous, but we tried to grab, you know, the top 5 or 6. And those, with FSM, you still have that same repository. It allows for the management of those contracts. But as I'll show in a little bit with some widgets and dashboards and some automation functionality, there's a lot of differences and benefits for FSM that with it being connected Cloud Suite wise to every module. And so one of the neat things with this is it allows for the ability for the requester to submit a contract for approval. So nowadays you may just have them submit a requisition for say a service. You can actually have them submit a contract no matter what facility they're at, and have them submit a contract for approval. And that contract manager will get a notification that there's a contract request. They can look at it, they can review it, see if there's already an existing contract out there. There might be a master service agreement that's available that facility is not aware of. So it can kind of really limit your duplicates as far as contracts go. And so taking advantage of that allows to have kind of that central approval system so that you don't have facilities going off and just approving and agreeing with their own contracts. And then next thing you know, you've got 16 contracts from 16 different facilities that could have been taken advantage of for the entire system and gotten, you know, a little bit better pricing or service. So that's something that we'll show you. And it allows the ability to not only add item master items, but also special items like I showed you. That will default pricing and also keep that purchase tracking as well. But one of the biggest things with that is it'll allow for that special to interface and communicate with that clinical system. So if you have an item that's going to be you're going to utilize in surgery twice a year, if that item is not stocked and is not on a par location, you can keep that item as a special and interface it over to the clinical system. So it's a lot less management on building items that you're only going to use once a year, if not, maybe never. Building, 2,000 screws or whatever you need to do. Things like that can help minimize the already abundant need to managing item master and contracts as well. So that's something that is really an eye opener. And then your service agreements that you have, you can also do the invoice matching, and that also takes place in version 10. But the service agreements here are a little different because they don't really create a PO number. They utilize the contract number. And so what's available is not only can you minimize the matching and paying of an invoice, but AP has the ability to not only match on a PO number, but they can match on a contract number, and they can also match onto a unique identifier for a working contract ID. So that allows for a little bit less errors in matching and being able to get those services paid faster. And so that's something that going down. I know that I already mentioned no longer needing to create an IC11 record for non-stock items in that interface. And then what's neat is you can also add specials to order templates. It's also listed as shopping lists. You'll have a favorites catalog, but the nice thing is it doesn't have to have an item number to be on a template. It can be a special, and it can still pull that information from the contract. So it really takes advantage of not needing to build that item master item. It has numerous amounts of automation functionality, and it also has widgets and dashboards. And so we'll kind of go through these. The widgets and dashboards make a world of difference on your day-to-day operations, and so it can really minimize, similar to the list that you saw where it had multiple tabs in version 10. It takes it one step farther to bring in that information to the forefront for you to work. So as I did with version 10, we're going to do with FSM. And this is, as you create a contract, this is your contract header. Now, as you see, most of these fields are all the same that you're going to have for your version 10. The difference is it has a little bit different functionality with an alerts tab, articles, question list, questions and answers. It has some different tabs because it has a little bit different functionality. It's a little bit more advanced. And one thing that I'll show you here is where we had comments and you had your contacts. As I was telling you, there's that actually an attachments tab now. So all of your documents that you have will actually still be there. You'll be placing them into attachments. So then you still have a one-stop shop, but you actually have an attachments tab, which helps you. Now you can still add comments, and you can still do that and still add an attachment in those comments, but they actually have an attachment there. And then the difference here is once you actually make a change on here and you click release and activate, that change is immediate. And then you can also have it set up where you don't have to put it into addendum or an amendment to change a price. You can change a price and it's immediate. It doesn't have that interface anymore because it's all attached. And so that's a really big difference between your version 11 and then FSM is you have to remember that everything is live and attached. So when you make a price change on a line, if it's not a new line that needs to be released and activated, it's going to change that price for the agreements. So that's something that really is a big change versus the two, because you don't have to wait for that interface. But you also have to remember as you work it, when you make a change, it's immediate. So, so the same way you'd set this up, you'd have your lines, your participants, if you have your rebates, and they have availability for different milestones, deliverables, any questions that may need to be asked or anything. And so that's really your contract header as you get into it and all the information that you can have in there. Now, the difference between, big difference between version 11 and FSM, as far as a supplier goes, is in version 10, you have to have that vendor if it needs a supplier. Now here, you can create a supplier and have it just be a supplier. You don't have, if nothing is going to be processed through that contract, you can create the supplier to utilize this as, say, just a repository. Say you have, in some cases, you have some physician agreements, some other agreements where you just need to keep track of the information, but you're not really going to do any transactions. You can have a supplier built. It's not going to have a vendor built for it because you're not going to do any transactions, but you can still utilize contract management minus a vendor if you just need it for a repository. And one of the things I had mentioned to you with that's a really big growth as far as functionality from version 10 is the ability for a requester to actually do a contract proposal. So if you have somebody, say somebody walks in, says, I need to have, something done to the air conditioner unit, and they don't have an agreement for that. They don't have a PO number, anything like that. They want to have a service agreement. That information can be set here. And then also, if you have, sales reps all the time come in hospitals and try to give deals on items and everything. So if you have, some places call it going rogue, but if you have a requester and your guys' process is you don't sign anything at the facility, it needs to be, submitted. That requester can put in what contract information they have, what supplier they want to get it from, the dates, what account that they want it placed under. And then as they click next, it'll go through this line here. And so if there's one line, they can list the information for what that information is as far as items, if it's a service. If there's more than one, say you have 20 items and you don't want to list each item, you can add the attachment to it. And then you just submit that proposed contract. And so that will go to a contract manager and they will review it. And then they'll accept it, or if they have any changes, any questions. And I'll show you later on where that on the dashboard comes in for that contract manager to get that information. So as soon as it's clicked submitted, that goes immediately to that contract manager or whoever's going to approve that. So this is one of those things that's really neat because you don't have to send out 20 emails to a bunch of different people. You can actually put in the contract proposal here for any items and really get it going through the system, all the documentation, anything like that. And then as you go in and you actually click on a line, I wanted to show you kind of how this is. So as you build your header, and you build your line, you can add your lines in here, and each line has it. Now, these are all specials, but I want to show you it lists based on anything that you want. You can personalize it. So you can have a unit of measure, you can have a unit of measure conversion. Now, obviously, this whole list fills up pretty quick. You could have manufacturer number on here. So as you go through here, it has a list of all the lines, and this is just a 20, and there's just a few on here for examples. But it shows you your list of items. And this is actually just your base cost. So this is a kind of your base cost that's added. And as you click into that line, it actually pulls up kind of like a line header. Gives you your information, your item number, your descriptions, right? Your vendor item, and all of those, all that information. Then if they have a picture or anything, and then if you click on your members tab, that's actually going to show you if there's multiple members on here, what their actual tier is. So if you have multiple tiers on here, now in this case, we have one company, they're on tier 1, and then their purchase method. Now you have multiple purchase methods that you can click on. You can do from distributor only, from manufacturer only, from neither, if you wanted to stop them from being able to default pricing, or from manufacturer and distributor. So it can be ordered direct or indirect, and you can manage that based on priorities that you set on your contract as you build those. So this is one way to default and force contract purchases to go through different vendors based on how you have the contract set up. So it's a control feature so that you don't have those requesters who go, well, I like to get it from A instead of B, or they prefer whatever. If it's supposed to be gone through distribution and they keep ordering it direct, looking at that, controlling that, taking advantage of that. So what this allows you to do, and we have the same price as the base cost in here because it's tier 1, so it's just a base tier. But if you had company 120, they were on tier 2, and their price was $349, that would be listed here as well. So it'll list all of your members and what pricing tier. And then if you need to update those, you can update to a different tier as long as that tier is built with that. And then as you have with your service agreement header, it's the same way. You have your header, it's a service, you can put in your dates, you can put in the amounts that you want limit. So if you say this service, we're gonna have an open time and materials, usually takes about $1,800 a year. We'll put $2,000 on it. And then come July, you've already hit that $2,000 mark. This is gonna not only stop you from being able to have AP match it, but it's also gonna be able to make it so that there's an error, and then you can have someone look at it, or the requester, whoever put it in for approval, can look at it and say, okay, are the other invoices being put against this incorrectly, or are we really using that much of that service or that time and materials? So it allows you that cross-check and balance as far as the service agreement goes. And then you have the same choices, service agreements, you have your comments, your attachments, all that stuff can keep track based on your lines. And you can also do, as you have a line for service agreements, and here we tapped into the line right here, okay? So each is $299, and you have line 1. Now, as you click into that line, you actually have down below your distributions. So you can click into the distributions, and you can have multiple distributions. So that's something that you can take advantage of as well. So you can have one agreement for multiple locations, and they can all have a different percentage. So if you have, say you have 2 locations that you have on the same agreement and one gets 60% of the funds and one gets 40, you can have those two different locations here. Now this one just has one, but if you did add another one, both locations together have to add 100%. So either they're going to be 50-50 or 60-40, but that still allows you the availability to have one agreement and manage one agreement with multiple locations on it and take advantage of that. So you don't have to have 4 different agreements built that you have to manage on dates. So that's something that it still allows you to do with tiers and then also services that you have. When we were talking about automation functionality, it allows you to take advantage of the review dates on agreements and set up automatic email notification for those dates. That's something that, as I said at the beginning, a lot of times it takes more than 30 or 60 days to get that contract, that renewed contract, or even a brand new replacement done. So taking advantage of those review dates to try to get the replacement or the update taken care of and started as quick as possible is paramount. And so this really allows you to take advantage of those auto notifications to let whomever know, whether it's going to be an approver, a contract manager, a sales rep, that those dates are coming and that you need to start working on that. Because you don't want to be sitting with pricing that's not going to default. It starts at the top and rolls all the way down to the bottom, and it does nothing but wreak havoc. And anybody who's been in contracts knows that it's not a perfect system. It takes a long time to get a contract created, signatures, approvals, items, and then even get it loaded. So that's something that really, that functionality is very important to being proactive. And then carrying on in proactive is the system also allows you to do proactive pricing. If you receive, an excitement, instead of 30 days late, they give you 30 days ahead of time a new contract and you get it signed. You can load that if there's, say it's an amendment that pricing went up 1% or pricing's changing on items. You can load that future pricing for those dates. And then on that effective date, those prices will automatically change. Now, I would definitely, obviously once you do that, go back and verify to make sure some of those prices changed. But it allows you the ability to do future pricing. And that's something I did not mention in version 10, but version 10 has the same ability that you can load future pricing. And then that date comes and the pricing will update. So it helps you try to be proactive. Contracts is really tough to be proactive, especially with existing contracts and the way supply chain world's working right now. But that allows you an ability to take advantage where you can. And then one of the other things that's new with FSM is, in some cases, you have the ability with some GPOs, they're allowing GPO pricing updates and item additions to be automated, which requires minimal touching by the contract manager. And so depending on your GPO and who you have, that functionality may be available to do those interfaces. And then really all you're looking at is anything that's changed. So if all the prices have stayed the same, you're just looking at anything that's different. So there may be, it'll automatically add new items. So if you have 4 new items on a new price file, it can automatically add those to that contract. But you're still going to be reviewing those, anything that may change prices, anything that may have a unit of measure issue, anything that may have an item master number that needs to be looked at. But every day it gives you that update so that hopefully you're a little bit more proactive, and it's a newer thing, but it's something that's out there that's available based on the GPO that's available. So you'd have to reach out during your design session and stuff, see if those GPOs are available. And then, as I was saying, for widgets and dashboards, so as you sign in, I had showed you what version 10 looks like. It has kind of that the tab view up above. So as you sign into contract management in FSM, your dashboard will populate. And so there are some short links to manage contracts, and not on this slide, but as you open this up, you'll have a menu to your left as well. But those searches are all there as well. And so this is where you can easily click a link to manage your suppliers if you need to add them. But this brings, if you recall, we had active expiring contract tabs. We had tabs with milestones. We had tabs with ones that are expiring. So there's all kinds of different dashboards that you can have. This is a handful that I was able to pull in the screen print. But I want to kind of show you that you have active expiring and expired. So these are ones that are already expired, and you can actually click on the arrow. It'll open up the list of them, and then you can export them. Now, one of the things that's different in FSM is versus I should say version 10 Lawson. And it's different in contract management in version 10 and FSM, is you don't use Microsoft add-ins or uploads into contracts. You use what they call Infor Spreadsheet Designer, and that works similar in some ways to add-ins, just a little bit different how you manage it. And so you still would go through and select your criteria, but that's how you update. And that's how you can do uploads in contract management. Now, one thing that is different with FSM versus version 10 with the Infor Spreadsheet Designer is FSM really minimizes the need for it unless you're uploading a lot of contracts and everything, because in FSM, you're able to click create, and once you have that list view, it allows you to really pull that or adjust that list view how you want, and then you can really pull that report out as you want it to. So you don't necessarily have to run Infor Spreadsheet Designer, go out, create the query and pull it. The information is very readily accepted and available right as you're here. So as you click on those different things, these choices are all available on your menu, but this is something that they bring to the forefront. So if you have contracts that have line errors, whether you're in version 10 or you're in FSM, if your contracts have a line error, that line is not going to interface. That line is not going to default anywhere. Because it's in error, it's not going to do anything. So it's very important to manage those errors, because it could be a unit of measure issue. It could be a vendor item issue where it's been assigned the incorrect vendor item to it. So those are things that this brings to your forefront. I had mentioned earlier that your proposed contracts. So the requester submits a proposed contract, that comes right to your forefront here. So you can have that here. And this is your whole list of them. So you could scroll down and see that entire list, or you can, if you want to see all of those, you can click the arrow and it'll pull them all up into a list view. So that really, this screen here, this dashboard, really allows for the visibility and functionality and daily work to really be assisted by it. As you come in, you may prioritize proposed contracts that need to be done, contracts with errors you may. So that's just something that this really helps kind of you manage your contracts as you go through. And that's one thing that's a huge benefit for FSM, is being able to make all that information readily available and at your fingertips. So, I do appreciate you watching this. ROI appreciates it immensely. If you have any questions or you want to get started on any of this, we have two ways that you can really contact us. One is our website, which is that you can, or your email that can be reached out to, and that's info@roihs.com. And then if you want to just call us direct and get a hold of us, reaching out to us, 678-270-2867. We can help you get started. We can start you in the right direction. We can answer those questions, anything that you may be confused on, you just want a little bit more clarification, give you some expectations, but we can help you really get started in the right direction as far as taking advantage of the contract module, either in version 10 or even in FSM. But I appreciate it, and I'd like to just say thank you, and have a good day.